The Roswell Artist In Residence application is open to any artist working in any medium, whatever their stage of their career. We focus on their work to the exclusion of other characteristics. We don't look too much at their CV or where they went to school or something like that. There are 5 panelists made up of regional arts professionals, curators, museum directors, gallerists, and past residents. And we get together and look at several hundred applications. Last year it was around 470. So it's a very competitive application program. There's something like 20 works of art that you're required to upload online and a few pieces of text. The residency is the product of one man's vision and generosity, and that's Don Anderson, who lives across the street from us now. In the late 60s, he was an oil man and an entrepreneur and a painter. And living in Roswell, he didn't interact with a lot of artists, so he started inviting them to come make projects here. He invited Herb Goldman to come make the hinge in 1966. It's a monumental earthwork on his property. He also invited Taos luminaries Barbara Latham and Howard Cook. They were a married couple to come down and spend winters here because the winters in Taos were hard in their old adobe. And these relationships with these artists, conversations that Don would have, really fueled him. So he started to look for a way to formalize and continue those kind of interactions. For the past 53 years, we've served about 260 artists a year at a time. So that's roughly 260 years of pure art production that we've provided.
For 20 years now, I've been doing this kind of drawing called micrography, which is literally tiny calligraphy. So you make a representational drawing of a landscape or an animal, but it's all made out of tiny handwritten words. So in the other room, I'm doing that process, just a straight drawing of a pack of dogs, which is made entirely out of handwritten text. And the text that I'm using there is the Supreme Court decision for Citizens United. So I'm copying it word for word. When I was selected, I was super excited because I'd be able to have a studio, which I don't have normally. I was also excited because I know how hard it is to get chosen. And partly I know that because I've applied before and not gotten it. And I think the reason for that is there are just so many amazing artists that apply. You know, I think if you got it down to 100 people, they would all be amazing and deserving.
I was in the residency 10 years ago, and since I stay in town, I continue working because there is this great community here. Okay, so I've been, people have been very generous to me over here. So I have been allowed to keep working, you know, and so during this 10 years, I was kind of developing a lot of work that I haven't had a chance to even process before, you know. So coming into the residency now allows me to look at everything that I did in the past, 10 years over here. My drawings, my paintings, all the stuff that I've done, the graphic work and so forth. And so this is allowing me to look back in all this body of work and take away everything that I want to do with it. So what I'm trying to convey is this horrible situation that we find ourselves in. With environment, with politics, it's putting us down. It's like they're closing doors on all of us, on everybody.
My name is Jordan Ann Craig. I am Northern Cheyenne and Zuni, And my mother's Northern Cheyenne, my father's Eastern European, so I'm the mix of both of them. And I take a lot of influence from my Northern Cheyenne background. I heard about the Rare Foundation through simply Googling around. I did a few fellowships in New Mexico, and I wanted to return to the desert to start painting again. I got an email this past application season from Alicia Poon from the School for Advanced Research, and she forwarded me Larry Bobb's email basically saying, we want to represent more Indigenous and Native American artists in our foundation. Contemporary Native art is very important, and it's something that our foundation needs to support. So with that little bit of incentive, and also knowing that my type of work is important and also needed in this space, I decided to put in an application. The dot paintings I create, I like to refer to them as memory landscapes. So they're not necessarily anything that I'm tracing or replicating exactly. I like to think of it as when you're driving and you just have these landscapes in your periphery, and those are the ones I'm memorizing and keeping in my mind. So that is that's my translation of those mountains and those plateaus and those drives to the airport at 4 in the morning or whatever it might be. So the dot paintings are a way for me to meditate on different topics, and they're a way for me to, bring up memories of the land, memories of my life, of my family's life, of my ancestors, and bring them into these beautiful outer worldly experiences. So the dot paintings, they're very intensive and they're time consuming, but they're really important for me to experience as I make them.
I was over the moon when I got the call. I couldn't believe it. For one thing, I don't know of many photographers that have gotten the residency. Wasn't counting on it, that's for sure. When I got it, I just was so thrilled, and it's been an amazing time here. I've been photographing for about 8 months for this exhibition, and now I'm finding it's hard to narrow it down to decide which images go in the exhibition, because I want to include more than I can. Subject matter is the landscape, and more specifically, humans' sort of intervention on the landscape, things we leave behind, marks that we make on the landscape, just sort of the human story of the landscape. I use what's known as a plastic camera, made in the 1960s in Hong Kong by the Great Wall Plastic Company. They found, I think, quite a recipe for a camera. It's really low tech. You can't see what's in focus. I've worked out a zone focus thing. I've got several of these cameras because they don't, if you're using them a lot, they don't last too long. They're 99% of parts are plastic. So I really like the effect that this camera gives. With its plastic lens, it distorts the light and changes how things look. It gives it sort of an eerie feel or slightly surreal.
I was living in LA and I really wanted to continue in my career as an artist. And then I started researching amongst the best residencies in the United States. And I also knew that if I was going to take that big step for leaving my job and my livelihood, I was going to do it for long term, like at least a year. My work is very concerned with technology. I've always been interested in the conception of technology and the history of technological development. When I was in BFA, I started learning about the history of the Spanish colonization of the Americas, and then I started, in a very weird way, thinking about religious concepts and technological concepts in the same spectrum. Right now, I am working on these objects with reclaimed technology, household hardware, and I'm trying to make these objects that are maybe part spaceships, part vehicles, part objects of worship, and I try to embody them with meaning. Like, I think if I can get to the halfway point where it reads like a religious subject, but also as a vehicle and a souvenir, then I accomplished my goal.
Another basic philosophical tenet of the residency is that we don't require things of the residents. We try not to impose on their time as much as possible. Most artists do accept the invitation from the Roswell Museum and Art Center to mount a solo exhibition.
It took several months to kind of create the sculptures for the exhibition, and it was a tedious process of carving foam and casting resin and sculpting with epoxy. And then it took several days to move everything over from the studio to the gallery. The reception for the opening was great. I mean, it's unique in that Roswell does have this kind of built-in supportive community where it seems like people are generally plugged in and interested in what the residency is doing and the programming that happens through the residency program.
When we opened to the public, we had an expanded gallery, we had expanded artworks from Don's collection, and we were called Gallery 409. And I think it was only a couple years later that Don really decided to call it the Anderson Museum of Contemporary Art. So it wasn't really a sales gallery, it was going to be a permanent showpiece. And in 2000, he created a large addition onto the museum, added more square footage. The art in Roswell is of a high quality because of Don Anderson. Without the Artist in Residence program, you wouldn't have had the caliber of artists that have been here, and you wouldn't have the quality of art that's in the Anderson Museum. So really it's Don's vision has just elevated what locals and tourists get to see. We are up to 22,000 square feet, and we are up to more than 500 works of art. Most visitors to the museum comment on Don's gallery being one of their favorites. I feel they like Don's work because of their peacefulness, the colors, the aerial perspective. It's a very calm, beautiful gallery. If you love traditional art, you'll like his paintings. If you like contemporary art, modern art, you'll like his paintings because of their graphic quality. I think different people like them for different reasons, but I would say most people who come to the museum comment on how much they enjoy Mr. Anderson's gallery.
Being here for the last year and a half has been an incredible honor to serve this institution that's given me so much, and to serve this institution just gives back to me. The artists come here, they're so grateful, they're so hardworking. To just help them do that is really inspiring for me, and it's done wonderful things for my family. We're incredibly grateful to be here.